Aerial views of the majestic Mercedes-Benz Stadium, home of the 27th annual Southeastern Conference Football Championship game. Will the Dogs repeat, or will the Tide roll for the 5th time in 7 years? We're about an hour and a half from kickoff. This is the SEC Championship pregame show.
WALB News 10 Sports presents the Road to the Championship SEC pregame show, brought to you by Tough Truckin'.
Smack from the heart of downtown Atlanta. For John Barron, I'm Theo Dorsey. South Georgia, let's talk sports. The SEC was the first of the Power 5 conferences to adapt a championship game back in '92, and it's perennially the most exciting.
Yeah, and Theo, and that doesn't change here this afternoon. Now, this game can go a long way in shaping how the college football playoffs will go. And speaking of, let's go ahead and take a look at where those teams stand heading into Championship Saturday. Alabama's been the wire-to-wire #1. Can they lose today and remain in the top 4? Clemson claims the 2nd spot as they prepare to play Pitt in the ACC title game. The 3rd undefeated team is Notre Dame, which sits comfortably at the 3rd seed. And the coveted 4th spot is occupied by Georgia. Losing today is not an option.
Well, John, also now let's take a look at how these teams got here. Of course, these are 2 championship contenders, and they've been that way from the jump, being the 2 teams that fought for it last year. But Georgia had it much like they did last season. Last season, they came into the championship game with 1 loss on their record against Auburn. This year, they ran the table except for that 1 game in Death Valley, John.
Absolutely. That double-digit loss to LSU really hurt them and set them back on their goal to get right back here. But they've found their way. They crawled their way back into the top 4, and now they find themselves right back here in the SEC championship title game.
It's the next game for us. I mean, for us, it's we've been thinking about the next game, the next game, the next game. It's the next game for us. So we're focused on Alabama now, moving forward, and what a tremendous opportunity, great program, great team. They've got. I mean, we know how good they are. We played them less than a year ago, so we know they got a good football team, and they do a good job. We're excited about representing the SEC East and go over to Atlanta and play.
Their fate is in their own hands now because no 2-loss team has ever made the college football playoffs, but just like they did last year, they can get their way in with an SEC championship. And as for Alabama, well, the Tide just kept on rolling. They were the #1 team in the AP when the season started, and that never changed. They were the #1 team in the college football playoff initial rankings, and that hasn't changed. They're undefeated. No team has come close to beating them or challenging them. Nick Saban's team sitting comfortably at the top of the SEC. But again, last year they didn't win the SEC championship. This year, they're looking to add that onto their resume.
Absolutely, and they didn't win the SEC championship, but they still found themselves in that college playoffs. And now, this is a big difference. They're here at the SEC title game. If they lose, like we said, can they find themselves back in the college football playoffs? But we don't know. We'll have to see.
We'll have to see if that's in the cards. Of course, they're not going to want to have to play that hand. They'll try and keep it wire-to-wire #1. Well, John, as we both know, not everyone is a Georgia fan or an Alabama fan. So for those South Georgia fans of football who are going to be watching and you don't really have a rooting interest, well, I'm going to help you out with that. Now, Alabama has no players from the 229, but Georgia has plenty, most of them on the defensive side of the football. Let's take a look, and we'll start with the impact players. Number 52, Tyler Clark, and number 84, Walter Grant. America's native Tyler Clark starts at defensive tackle. He has 25 total tackles, 4 for a loss, 3 passes batted down, a sack, and a fumble recovery through 12 games this season. Linebacker Walter Grant is from Cairo. He's got 19 total tackles in his 2nd year in Athens. Now then there's the true freshman crop, Crisp County native Quay Walker. He sees time sparingly at linebacker. He has 6 stops on the season. Also, Lee County native Otis Reese has seen some time in 9 games. He has 13 total tackles on the year. And then Albany native Garrett Jones and Dawson native Trey Bishop also in the lineup or on the roster, but have not yet seen any time this season.
Now here's how the 2 teams stack up against each other. The only offense in the nation that scores at a higher clip than Alabama is Oklahoma, the Tide scoring 49 points per game. Meanwhile, Georgia comes in at 13th in the nation, just over 40. Both teams are traditionally defensive-minded, but expect points on the board. Georgia has the edge in the running game, but Bama has done it through the air.
Now, of course, the last time Dogs fans stepped into this building to watch their team play, they left with some bad memories. But right after this break, we're going to talk about why Dogs fans have some optimism coming into the SEC championship game, in a game where they want to exact some revenge on the Tide. Welcome back to the show here from Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We moved to have the Falcon in the background, a nice backdrop for as we get closer and closer to kickoff for the SEC Championship, Alabama versus Georgia. Now, John, the last time these two faced off in an SEC Championship game was 2012. The past 10 SEC title games, they haven't really been close. All of them been double-digit margins, and the odds makers are making it right on that line. But, John, there was one game that was different than all of those last ones.
Absolutely. The last time that Georgia and Alabama faced each other, right here in Atlanta at the Georgia Dome in the 2012 SEC Championship title game. Like you said, those odds makers definitely have done their homework. They have Alabama at a 10-point favorite heading into this game.
Yeah, John, so we went to the Georgia media availability in Athens this week, and one of the keys they said was stopping Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, especially Michael Barnett stressed on that. They said if they want to make sure that they secure a victory here today, that they need to rattle Tua. He's been very comfortable. He holds the number 5 offensive line right in front of him. They've only allowed 16 sacks this entire season, so they're definitely going to have to do that job. And he said that he and his boys are ready for it.
From the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, South Georgia, let's talk sports. And no, I'm not sitting back relaxing on the job. I'm just early for tailgating for the SEC Championship in Atlanta. Of course, we had to come out here and get a look at where fans build up their excitement in anticipation for Georgia versus Alabama for the crown in the SEC. Now, of course, Georgia took down Georgia Tech in the final game of the regular season. While I was there getting highlights, since the game wasn't really that close, I got up in the stands and talked to some of those Georgia fans that said they'll be coming out here to Atlanta to make sure they see their dogs fight for the crown.
I think we got a chance, man. I think Kirby's got a couple curveballs up his sleeve. I think Bama's D is starting to get solid. But our offense is too. We're starting to gel, so I think we got a chance.
Now, as we get ready to leave the College Football Hall of Fame and get back to the bins, we're getting closer to kickoff.
And we'll be back after break.
Welcome back to the show as we inch closer and closer to the SEC Championship game. Georgia getting ready to take on Alabama in what will be a game for the crown of the SEC and really what's the crown conference of college football in today's game. Now, you know, there's been a different aura around Georgia football out in Athens ever since Kirby Smart was hired back in 2015.
Yeah, absolutely. In his 3 years, he's accumulated a record of 32-8, and obviously he's 1-0 when it comes to the SEC Championship game. But in his 4 years that he played at UGA, he always wanted to come right here and get the chance to win a ring. Last year, he got that opportunity. Now he has another chance to add yet another ring to the case. Can he do it? We'll have to see here today.
It's not really about that for us. I mean, the media will make it that way, and everybody will make it about a revenge and all that. It's not really about that for us. It's a SEC East championship team going against an SEC West championship team playing in Atlanta for the SEC championship. And that's what it is. And obviously for a chance to continue on for somebody. But our team understands that. I mean, we've been on do-or-die playoff run since every game we've been playing. What's the difference?
Of course, Kirby Smart is a Bainbridge native, really the pride of Bainbridge, and he has some more South Georgia ties as well. He had some time at Valdosta State as a coach, and then Kirby Smart, of course, has many ties to Nick Saban, the guy he'll be going up against. We did the master versus pupil thing earlier on, talking about how Nick Saban has gone 15-0 against assistants, and Nick Saban took down Kirby Smart in last year's national championship. But the bond between these two coaches, because Kirby Smart followed him to 3 different places, is really strong, and Nick Saban has a very high respect for the Bainbridge native.
We're excited about the opportunity that we have to play in the SEC championship game. And it's always a great competitive venue because you're always playing against a very highly ranked, talented team, and certainly no question about that when it comes to playing against Georgia, who is very sound in what they do and very well coached on both sides of the ball. It's going to be the biggest challenge we've had to date.
Now we're in a better position. I think we're able to finish a lot better this season, and but still up in the air. I was asked about legacy over there, and there's no legacy unless we finish the right way, and so that's our focus. We play a really high quality opponent in Georgia, but we do feel that our destiny's in our hands, and the onus is on us to be able to prepare and be successful.
And thank you so much for joining us here right outside of Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta as we get ready for the SEC Championship game.
Absolutely, right here in Mercedes-Benz. Kickoff is scheduled for 4 o'clock, Alabama versus Georgia. We hope you guys enjoy the game. We'll see you next time.